Those who have heard of Karl Marx know that the main idea of the chief inspirer of the millions of murders and suffering in the 20th century was to take all means of production out of private hands, that is, to deprive people of their property. And it's easy to control people who have nothing.
Ladies and gentlemen, what just happened live on air is shocking New York and the entire country. Zokran Mandani is a man whom the media wants to portray as a harmless democratic socialist. He just said something that is usually left unsaid, and he got caught. And you know what, guys? President Trump was right from the very beginning, because today America just saw what real communism looks like, disguised in progressive language. Mandani didn't just misspeak. In fact, he exposed himself. Not in that way, but he did expose himself. Discussing seizing production means government grocery stores and ending private property. Right there, live on air, guys. And even though President Trump was laughed at for calling him a 100% communist lunatic, video evidence now proves that Trump was absolutely right.
Guys, we know how it all starts. The bloodsuckers drain you completely. They built their prosperity on your sweat and the blood of your ancestors. Subtitles let them share. And what does it mean to share? It's a vague concept. Like in English, they say fair share, pay your fair share, a fair portion. But what is fair? What does fair mean? Well, I mean, how much to give? They don't explain that. Every time, no matter how much they increase it, the next person comes and says, pay your fair share, starting today. So let's put it this way. A small business owner in New York, or a very high-ranking official, or someone who works at a very good job with bonuses, a broker there, so to speak, on the stock exchanges and so on, well, let's say, so to speak, brings in $1 million a year. Gross. You'd be surprised, but there are quite a lot of people like that in New York. That's a high compensation. But he worked, well, just like Papa Carlo. He mortgaged his house to start a business, took risks, studied for years, and now he's finally reaping the rewards of his hard work and ingenuity. For $1 million, the feds are stealing from the producer. $370,000? I'm giving you an average figure so it's clear. The state is something entirely different. Federal, that's the state. They take another $65,000, and the city, let's say New York, takes another $40,000. What's the total amount taken? It comes out to around $450,000 out of that same million. You might say, well, he still has a lot left. But for most people, that means a lot is left. He worked a lot for this, invested a lot for this, did a lot for this, but all right. A lot more New Yorkers earn a quarter of that, which is $250,000 a year. And the amount taken from them is $100,000, and most of the money goes to certain purposes. Those robbed neither support nor know these purposes. If they learned, they'd be outraged. But if you have an apartment in New York, the average cost of an apartment in New York City today is $1.2 million. Are you in favor of this just because you bought and maintain your own apartment? But you also pay $18,500 annually to the city just for this apartment. That's why in New York you have to pay separately. Also, social contributions are 8% of your earnings, which will be about $10,000. Yes, if the salary is $250,000, but if it's $1 million, it's $40,000. Well, if you have savings and they increase, then you have to pay another 14% on that increase, let's say, so to speak. I don't know. That's $35,000 if it increased by $250,000. And $140,000 if it increased by $1 million. That is today before Mandani, before he started introducing his fair share. So with partial Marxism, I would say this. In New York, there is Marxism, but it's partial. If you make $250,000 a year, you're forced to give up, let's see, $100,000 plus $18,500 plus $110,000 plus $35,000, which equals $163,500 if you get a salary. To be continued, and you're left with $136,500 out of $250,000. But that's not all. Suppose you set aside $36,500 for savings and did something else with it. It doesn't matter. You spent $100,000 each. You spent $100,000 in the city. You think now you need to pay, what's that tax called in New York? Probably sales tax. And 12,500 out of 100,000 went to city and state sales taxes. Both of them impose taxes on sales. They want your money, so they impose them. Add 12,500 to 163,500, and you get $176,000 taken by the government. But unfortunately, it doesn't end there either. You have to pay, well, let's say to the city, you also have to pay for garbage removal. What you've already given them wasn't enough for them. For pets, if you keep them, licenses for a profession or business. And also taxes for using taxis. I swear there's a taxicab surcharge, a special city transportation tax. Let's count, so at least what? It's about 4,000 a year, just throw and run, throw and drop, as they say in Russian. And you'll be subtracting all of that too. So even from the 250,000 that you supposedly get, in reality, you're left with $120,000. That's 48%. They take 52% of your earnings. I don't want to keep calculating, but with $1 million, they take away 60% of your earnings. I don't know how much they take if it's 2, 3, or 5 millions. I just don't know, yeah. Well, let's leave it at that. You officially earn $250,000, but actually get $120,000 a year, which is $10,000 per month. In New York, that's not much money. You can't live on that. That's it. So $250,000 sounds like a lot, but if you got $1 million and gave them 60%, $600,000, you'd have $400 left, which you could live on. And that's before Mandri. So what does this young Leninist Che Guevara follower and Mao admirer want? He wants a cultural revolution, just between us girls. But he let it slip. He bent down, he smiled with a wide American, Ugandan, American Indian smile. And we saw that behind his dentures there was a row of steel teeth with a metallic or maybe silver sheen.
So, tonight I will break down in detail every explosive moment that just happened, from the footage leak to the voters' reaction. And more importantly, I'll show you why. This could be the most dangerous scandal involving a mayor that New York has ever seen. And right on cue, President Donald J. Trump just called it like it is. He said he's not a socialist, he's 100% communist crazy. Meanwhile, Mandani continues to insist, claiming that he is a democratic socialist who wants justice. But here's the thing, guys. Democratic socialism is like a wolf with a tag that says pet. You see what I mean? We need to talk about one of Mandani's craziest ideas. These so-called urban grocery store programs. His plan is to launch a $60 million pilot project with one government-run store in each district. He claims it's for food justice and eliminating food deserts, but here's the truth, guys, it's about control. Mandani doesn't dream of helping working families afford groceries. No, it's to insert the government into the one place where Americans still have daily freedom of choice: our food supply. Once the city owns the shelves, it controls prices, suppliers, and what you can buy. Remember the Department of Motor Vehicles' long lines, bad service, zero accountability. Now imagine that the same bureaucracy decides whether you get milk, meat, eggs. Maybe they'll ration it and limit how much you can buy. We've already seen how this ends in other countries. It's always the same: empty shelves, corruption, and ration cards. As President Trump said last week, when the government sells you food, it's only a matter of time before they decide what you can and can't eat.
We don't need to prove that to you. Eggs are only for union members. 2 potatoes per person, so lines for some reason. What did they put out? For socialism, my dear.
Mr. President, your beloved New York, It may soon be led by the communist Zokran Mandani, who said in his nomination speech that he will oppose immigration and customs enforcement and will not allow immigration and customs enforcement to arrest criminal foreigners in New York. Your message to the communist Zokran Mandani. Well, then we'll have to arrest him.
Well, it's simple and clear. If he gets in our way, we'll have to arrest him. That's
what we're going to do. Look, communism didn't work for 1,000 years. Simply put, communism, or the concept of communism, didn't work. I'm inclined to doubt that it will work this time.
Over the past 100 years, people have stepped on the same rake about 70 times, but America wanted to try it themselves to step on that very same rake. Will it hit us on the head now like it did with others, or will the Lord spare us? No, we won't be spared. Not this time. Not again. But what caused such a strong reaction even among his fellow Democrats? What led to so many wealthy, well-off members of the Democratic Party starting to plan to flee New York? You're going to laugh now. Where are they planning to go? To Texas and Florida. And the governor of Texas has already said, "Please don't come. I beg you, run anywhere you want, just not to us. You flee socialism, but once here you vote for the same system you escaped. Just don't bring it to me." To be continued. Mandani suggested creating state construction companies to build affordable housing. The apartments will remain state-owned and the rent price will not increase. With this, he will ensure that private construction companies leave the city, or try to make a deal with them saying things aren't as he claims and will change. Don't worry, I'm just saying this to save face. Mandani wants to raise the corporate tax rate to 11.5%, which, as he says, will increase the city's revenue from large corporations by 50%. Well, for him, large corporations are exactly those, the bandits he's fighting against, windmills. Large corporations have already started looking for places to leave New York for. Whether they leave or not, I don't know. Maybe, again, behind the scenes, behind someone's back, he'll make a deal. Maybe he's just trying to scare people, but actually just wants to get something. Well, I don't know what he wants to get. The additional tax on millionaires, as he called it, will make many city residents flee to other regions. Fifth, confiscation. One more time, let's start from here. The additional tax on millionaires, as he called it, will make many city residents flee to other regions. This is a policy of confiscation. I need money for some of my plans, and I take it from whoever I want, whenever I want. And what does he want? Once again, free rides on buses and the subway. I don't know if it's for everyone or just for a certain part of the population. Free preschool and university education. I believe it's for all New York City residents. They plan to open 6 municipal store networks first, assess the results, and then expand them citywide. What will be sold there? Food, medicine, and essential items. So basically direct competition with supermarkets and pharmacies. If they're cheaper than supermarkets and pharmacies, they'll just put them out of business. A massive increase in the minimum hourly wage. He wants it for all basic businesses in the city. He wants to raise it to $30 an hour. So, free healthcare, a significant expansion of social programs for the needy, sounds absolutely wonderful. If you're not legal and didn't study, work as a ditch digger or a dishwasher. Ma'am Don thinks, just like Marx, Lenin, Mao, Trotsky, Pol Pot, and Kim Jong-un or Il, that private property is the cause of all problems. And he plans to systematically take away, let me translate into Russian, make the residents of New York City work like Arabs. Sometimes there are 20 million people there, sometimes by confiscating, sometimes by driving them to ruin, either with taxes or all sorts of regulations and so on, making their property his own. Common, that is, as we already know, common means it belongs to no one.
Mamdani promoted progressive plans, from freezing rent on nearly 1 million apartments to free rides on city buses. In a race that became an ideological and generational test with national consequences, Mamdani campaigned as an outspoken progressive and a new voice for his generation. Since President Donald Trump's victory last year, Democrats have been out of power in Washington. But the trio of races gave embattled Democrats a chance to try out different strategies ahead of next year's midterm elections, when control of Congress will be at stake.
When Zohran Mamdani took the microphone on Tuesday evening, a socialist shock began to shake the Democratic establishment. With a challenge, Mamdani effectively declared not a reform, but a Marxist revolution with America's largest city as its epicenter. Stay with me until the very end of this video, because we will see how the Democratic leadership has completely switched to damage control mode, as Mamdani is already openly displaying his disgraceful incompetence. And New Yorkers, as we say, are voting with their feet like never before. He hasn't even taken office yet, and this is already a complete and absolute, a total and absolute failure.
There's more panic among Democratic Party circles than among Republicans. Why, you may ask? The first thing young pikes like Mamdani will do is start getting rid of those they don't consider radical enough. Who did Vladimir Ilyich Lenin and the Bolsheviks get rid of? First and foremost, it was their fellow travelers. The left socialist revolutionaries, anarchists, and Mensheviks supported the Marxists, the Leninists, and they were gotten rid of. The very, very first ones to go. Well, and then came the party purges.
The newly elected mayor of New York, Zoran Mamdani, is already disappointing the Democrats. And it didn't take long. Mamdani had barely finished his victory speech, full of Marxist references and venom. As Van Jones, one of the most well-known Democratic commentators on cable news networks, said the following.
I think he missed an opportunity. I think that Mamdani, whom we saw during the election campaign, who was much calmer, much warmer, much more open, was not present in this speech. That's exactly what the Mamdani people need to hear tonight. Many are deciding if they can join him. Will he include me? Is he gonna fight more for the class, even in office? I think he missed a chance tonight to open up and bring more people in. I felt his tone was harsh, and he used the microphone so it sounded like he was almost shouting. And that's not the Mamdani we've seen on TikTok in great interviews and things like that. So it seemed to me that there was a bit of a change in character here, where the warm, open, friendly person who was ready to work with people wasn't on stage tonight, and there was some other voice on stage.
Yes, Van, that's how it works. That's exactly how socialism works. They start by offering you candy and end up putting a gun to your head. That's literally how it always works whenever it's been tried. My former classical guitar teacher, he was from Cuba. He lived during the Cuban Revolution, and he described it as something exciting. He remembers as a child when Castro overthrew their government, all his troops came into the village and offered candy to the children, and the kids were absolutely thrilled, and everyone was so excited. You know, they were all told that they were being liberated from oppression and that they were finally free. And then he said that literally just a few days later, everything started to change.
We don't recall giving candy to the children. We were born and lived when, well, everything had already changed. So, for the slightest reason, you could be thrown out of life and locked up in prison or in a home for the slightly or seriously insane. I remember I told people in Israel and America that at about the age of 7 or 8, I already knew that there were things you couldn't talk about at school, things that, let's say, my grandfather and my parents talked about at home. Everyone was shocked and outraged. In Israel, people were in disbelief. And recently, my grandson, well, he's a little older than that age. Yes, he explained to me, he lives here in the United States, that there are certain things he can't express at school, meaning the things we talk about, he can't say them in his American, not Soviet school. Gentlemen, this was before the new wave of Sanders' children, Trotsky's grandchildren, and democracy. This was under the so-called moderate woke Democrats, the children. But, gentlemen, what these supposedly moderate ones planted is exactly what grew. It devours them first and foremost, and then it will come for us if we let it. The key words, of course, are if we let it.
Wagamama United States of America, the chain of Asian cuisine restaurants, has just announced that they are closing in the United States. They are leaving from there. They are moving their corporate headquarters from New York to Tampa, Florida. This is the same pattern we've been seeing, especially in Chicago, where business headquarters are moving and corporate chains are just closing their locations in the city. Once again, this is the same pattern. Capitalist institutions are not going to stay and let some socialist flatterer abuse them as he pleases. And look at this. Fox Business reports that realtors in Miami and South Florida are already estimating the real estate boom in their state at $100 million. The situation is getting better and better for the red states. And all this is thanks to, as you guessed, New York. In fact, that's one of the reasons why New York Governor Kathy Hochul is already making it clear that she doesn't intend to take part in the Marxist transformation of Manhattan. Mom done, because she doesn't want a mass exodus from the state. I mean, she's already trying to contain the damage that's been done. Years of failed democratic policies, especially hers, have already caused lasting damage to New York's new residents. I mean, the numbers are just staggering. More than 125,000 New Yorkers have already moved to Florida in recent years, bringing with them nearly $14 billion in adjusted gross income.
People are leaving, and with them go their earnings and their savings. This will be
An absolutely priceless sight.
Because Mandani has never managed a Velk store. You're familiar with Velk stores. There were such things. He has never managed anything. He's over 30 with no experience. But he's brilliant, a gifted politician and promiser of great achievements. In a way, he's the promised land. The problem is he can't keep any of these promises. Socialism doesn't work. It never works anywhere, and it never will, and that's why it will very quickly start to disappoint people.
and
As we can see, it's already happening. He is already starting to back out of some of the tens of millions of promises he made about how his socialist government would come and solve every problem on the planet.
in addition to promising to give everything for free to those who voted for him, he also promised to fight. With whom do you think? With us, with all of us, and with Trump, of course, plus with us.
So Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn up the volume.
Turn up the television. He might have something to say.
Let's hold bad landlords accountable, because Donald Trump and others in our city have become too comfortable taking advantage of their tenants. He shouts, "Why do you need to turn up the volume?" We will put an end to the culture of corruption that has allowed billionaires like Trump to evade taxes and take advantage of tax breaks.
He, yes, is not exactly from a poor family, and it was billionaires who gave him money. But, by the way, I don't know what Trump has to do with corruption in New York and housing prices for the poor. He's just like Trotsky, shouting to the point of losing his voice, and the people would also be shouting with joy.
We will support labor unions and expand labor guarantees. Because we know, just like Donald Trump, that when workers have unshakable rights, bosses who try to blackmail them become very small. They deserve everything they get. New York will remain a city of immigrants, a city built by immigrants.
Created by immigrants. And starting tonight,
Under the leadership
of an immigrant,
Well, exactly, Trotsky was there. Or like Vladimir Ilyich, with shouting, stirring up the crowd, stirring up hatred. It doesn't matter what for, yes, quiet envy, loud hatred. That's what they always do. That's what they always try to stir up, envy and hatred.
And it often happens that the billionaire class tries to convince those who earn $30 an hour that their enemies are those who earn $20 an hour.
The billionaire class. Only 902 of them exist in America, among 350 million people. Who invented something? Apple, the internet, computers? I don't know, maybe invented medicines or something essential like that. Well, for a huge number of people, and grateful fellow citizens paid their money for these products and services. There are 902 such people in the United States, and they became the best of the best. They were the ones we went to with gratitude, bringing money for smartphones or for music or for medicine. They became a class. And what's more, they turned out to be angry, unfriendly, and hating us, the very people who brought them money and gratitude. They became, instead of our best friends in Mandami's stories, our enemies. Well, let's listen to this nonsense one more time.
They want people to... Wait, stop!
Stu, can you
Explain?
play it?
It's again.
Explain this sentence to me. The billionaire class tried to convince those who make $30 an hour that their enemies are those who make $20 an hour.
Citizens earn $30 while immigrants make $20. Billionaires are trying to turn them against each other. Or did I misunderstand something?
They want people to fight among themselves so that we stay distracted from working on fixing a system that's been broken for a long time. We refuse to let them dictate the rules of the game any longer. They can play by the same rules as the rest of us.
I'm totally for it.
Together, we will lead to a generation of change. And if we take this bold new course instead of running away from it, we can respond to oligarchy and authoritarianism with the strength they fear, not the appeasement they crave.
And this new course is like the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics Romania, Venezuela, North Korea, East Germany, Albania, Cambodia, Cuba, Vietnam. What's new here? In my opinion, this is terribly old. Something that has already proven itself to be useless. I think it's something old that has never succeeded. By the way, did you notice that he doesn't mention Sweden and Denmark anymore? Before, they always used Sweden and Denmark as examples like, look at Sweden, look at Denmark. But then he went to the United Nations. The Danish Prime Minister spoke and said, guys, by all global indicators, Denmark and Sweden are much more capitalist than the United States of America. All right, let's get back to Glenn Beck. He, of course, is sarcastic and has a sense of humor.
Now he continues in the next sentence, which we didn't catch. After all, if anyone can show a nation devoted to Donald Trump how to defeat him, it's the city that gave birth to him. If there's a way to scare a despot, it's to destroy the conditions that allowed him to accumulate power. How did Donald Trump accumulate power? How did he do it?
Let me tell you, he built a huge amount of real estate all over the world. He created the most popular television show on the planet. He wrote 3 bestsellers, one of them a global bestseller. He traveled nationwide telling people what needed fixing for the country to regain its greatness. Voters, citizens gave him his power. Well, Glenn Beck says what's interesting.
How Donald Trump accumulated power, how he did it, like capitalism. He accumulated power by making money, creating businesses, building. You know New York? A lot in New York was built by Donald Trump. That's how he accumulated power. What is he saying? Do you want to discuss taking off the mask? He says that now we have to dismantle this system of capitalism because it's what gave him power. The last excerpt is 47. Please.
After all, if someone can show betrayal of the nation...
Here it is, sorry.
The city that gave birth to him? And if there's a way to scare a despot, it's by destroying the conditions that allowed him to accumulate power.
Well, yeah, I'm obsessed with this guy, thanks.
It's not just how we stop Trump, but also how we stop the next one.
It's amazing. It'll be interesting to watch New York over the next 4 years. Very, very interesting. Because he'll be pushed by the left side. They'll demand that he does these things, and he wants to do them. Let's see how he does.
If you liked what you saw today, ladies and gentlemen, and you want more quality content, hit the bell and share it with your friends. Until next time.